Hello everyone, welcome to this week's webinar here with Brenndan Cooper at Tiffany Green's Golf Club in Kansas City, Missouri. As usual, we're brought to you by Medicus Golf and KickX Golf. If you have any questions, please put them in the sidebar and we'll get to those as soon as we get done talking.
Yeah, you got to listen to us first.
Yeah, or when we run out of things to say. This week's topic is transition, and there's a lot of different ways to go in transition in the downswing. And so we're going to show you some of these variations, and we're going to illustrate it with a lot of different things. So, you know, people say, well, how do I start the transition? Does it start from the ground up? Does it start from upper body? The answer is it can be a little bit of both.
Right.
Henrik Stenson, for example, I was just talking on the phone to somebody about that. We were talking about his transition, and of course Henrik kind of moves this way off the ball, then he gets right about here, and then his shoulders really accelerate.
Mm-hmm.
So he is much more, once he gets just a little bit of pressure going to the target, from there he is mostly upper body.
Yeah. Yep.
Other players will have a tendency to get more sideways to the golf ball.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we're going to show you a couple of different sequences on how to do that.
Yep. Yep.
All right, so let's hook up.
All right. Stick boy.
Stick boy.
Stick boy.
We don't have your one for your upper body.
Well, you won't.
All right, hopefully you can see all of this.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so. All right. You want to go? You want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when we make a backswing here, you're going to see that when I turn back, obviously you can now see these rods right here. So, you know, normally the transition, yes, you know, we want it starting from the ground up, you know, not from the top down. So when we start to go, you're going to see the rod on my hips start to go forward, and it's starting to rotate. Now that's pulling my shoulders. You can see how everything's turning in through there. You know, the transition piece is where we call it the rubber meets the road, because it's the most difficult thing to get down for anybody. Right. You know. Right. And like Chuck was saying a minute ago, you know, if you're a player that has a tendency to go more this way, so you can see how my upper body's going more outward towards Chuck there, well, then I want to focus on this bottom rod here. I want to feel like I'm getting everything going with it more, keeping this upper rod back, and that's going to keep the right shoulder back. Right. But now what we see a lot of better players do, a lot of better players already do that, but they do it to an extreme where this lower rod here will actually go out towards Chuck a little bit. And now you can see how this lowers this rod. So now that shifts everything way too far from the inside.
Yeah.
So back to Chuck's point, talking about Henrik Stenson, what he's trying to do is when he makes his move down to the first move down, is he's getting this pressure left, but now from here, he's using this upper rod and lower rod together like that.
Right. So if you kind of turn on face a little bit this way, and let's go to the top again and talk about when you started down with your upper shoulder. If you'll watch what happens when he does that first, when the upper body comes out first, the pressure's not moving forward, the pressure's hanging back here.
Right.
All right, so now at this shoulder angle coming down into the ball like this, that'll definitely increase your amount of lag. It'll also make you get down on a little bit more steeply.
Right, especially for players that have a very shallow angle of attack. Even though you may be on a pretty good plane, you can come in very shallow because this left shoulder is trying to go that way, instead of trying to get that pressure there.
Yeah, so when that left shoulder starts moving upward too quickly, that kind of shallows it out. And you also get, which is one of our all-time most viewed videos, if you turn around and face me now, you'll also get, if this left shoulder goes up, you start getting the hump the goat look.
Yeah. That was a good video too.
Yeah, it was a great, most views we've ever gotten. So it kind of depends on what you're trying to do in your golf swing. So the transition, again, can be a couple of different things. And we've done this video a couple of times now. So we'll just show you, it's if you want to get a feel for at least moving your pressure, right, you want to just start swinging the club back, kick the left foot up, put the left foot down, swing the club, pick the right foot up. So it's just like step, 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 step. That gives you a feel for at least the pressure moving. So it's kind of hard, and I had a guy the other day that may be one of the most uncoordinated people I've ever seen. I said, okay, Stephen, I want you to step to your left. And I go, close.
There's a roundabout step.
That's like stepping in the bucket as a batter, okay? That's not gonna work. So, but you just step. I mean, that's all you're trying to do. Get the club moving, step up, hit a golf ball.
Right.
So again, in your transition, as we were talking about, when you get up there, you have to feel, or you should feel a little bit of move, right? And get some pressure on the front foot. And then from there, again, and I'll show you this face-on view. We're talking about the path of the shoulder here. So if I get up here, and my left shoulder goes up too steeply, I'll show you what that looks like from back here. You can see how the club's also dropping way behind me. Now, if we get up here and we take the target side or left shoulder downward more, you can see that I don't go backwards.
Right.
So if you're somebody that actually gets the club under too far, you want to feel from the top that your left shoulder staying low longer. You can see the amount of lag or the angle that creates versus that move.
Yeah. Again, it's a false lag, we'll call it.
Right.
You know, for sure.
So, I mean, that's, you know, for your transition, you have to figure out, do you want to be a little more upper body dominant?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a lot stronger up here, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you do it in the right sequence.
Right. You got to have the order correct, like Chuck was saying, and then you also have to understand your swing and what ball flight it is you're looking for. You know, if you got real high hands at the top, well, you're going to have to do something a little bit different than what somebody with more shallow, laid off look, if you will. So you're going to have to get things coordinated a little bit differently. So that's why we always say there's variations and different ways to do it.
Right, and typically if you have high hands or hands that are way up there, in order for you to go to the ball, you have to really go lateral longer.
Yes.
All right, because what happens is when your hands are at your, let's say they're at your right shoulder or your trail shoulder, you can take your shoulder and everything right to the ball. When your hands are above that shoulder and you move that right shoulder, it's coming out.
Yeah.
So you'll have less lateral move in a swing, and where the butt of the club kind of lines up with the shoulder, you can have less lateral and get your upper body more involved. If you have it clear up here, you've got to get the hands down before you can make that movement with the chest.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, so we've got a bunch of questions, so let's see what we've got going on here today. All right, our first question is from Charles. I've heard to bow the wrist so that only two knuckles show on the left hand of a right-handed golfer at the top of the backswing. If this is true, is there a good drill for this? Well, the amount of knuckles showing is really not what you need to be concerned with.
Right.
You have to remember that this is a bending wrist, flat wrist, arched wrist, where it's at a line, a la Lee Trevino.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the best way to do that is try to do that as soon as you move the club away. Take your right hand and bend your right wrist back this way. What that does is it flattens and keeps in line the left wrist and left arm. So once you have that set, just continue upward and don't lose, as you can see, don't lose this right wrist angle. You can see my right wrist is bent back, and as soon as I do this, well, now that just made my left wrist bend.
Yeah.
Okay? And you want to maintain that feeling coming down.
Yes.
So again, a really good way to think about that, if I hold the club like this, all right, you can see that this wrist is bent and this one will be what we call flat. If I just move it this way, I've just changed that relationship now. So now I've got that in-line condition.
Yeah. You just maintain it.
Yeah. I mean, just don't try to get rid of it, just maintain it.
Yeah.
All right, good question. Let's see what else we got here. All right, this is from Don. What does the right arm do in the downswing? Well, as we talked earlier, Henrik Stenson, other than Ian Woosman, Henrik Stenson probably has the best right arm motion in golf.
It's pretty clean.
I mean,
Pretty clean.
some people come in like this, the arm's severely bent. You look at Henrik, this arm is slightly bent at impact, but I mean, right after impact, it is straightening what we would call diagonally, straightening outward. It's not straightening vertically.
Which we see a lot of that from a lot of people.
Yeah, you see people straighten their right arm back here. All that's going to do is either hit it fat or with it. So as you're getting down into impact, yes, you're going to have a slight amount of bend, but then you're driving this thing. Feel like this right arm is moving, but again, diagonally, not vertically.
Right. No, I mean, if and borrow your club there, if what you can do is if you get set, take your golf club. Now I'm gonna simplify this drill just a little bit. So take your grip. Now take your right hand off the club and just make a turn back. Now what you want to do is bring the hand right back down to where it was, and you can see I'm getting it to match up here. Right. If I feel this thing straightening before I get there, well, I'm dumping everything back here.
Exactly.
So I want to go make my turn and just bring it right back down, and you're going to feel basically how low this arm's got to be. Right. A lot of times people will do it out this way. So it's real simple little drill, just here and right back down.
Right, and the way he can get that arm on there is not only because it's straightening but not straight, because his right shoulder is also moving on plane.
Mm-hmm.
If the right shoulder is too high, you have to straighten way too early.
Yes.
All right, next question. This is from Steve. All my shots are draws, anywhere from a 10-yard baby draw to a 60-yard draw. Is there anything I can do to remedy this? I always revert back to my draw since this is my easiest shot. Just once I would like to hit consistent fades. Is there help for me? I'm at A handicap at the moment, but striving to lower it. Well, Steve, you're hitting the draw, so you're hitting the shot that 90% of all the golfing world would love to hit.
Yeah, so congratulations on that part.
So the only reason that you're hitting those overdraws, and we've talked about this a lot too, is the difference between your face and your path.
Yeah.
That discrepancy is too wide.
Mm-hmm.
So you narrow those. So you have two ways to narrow it. You either don't swing, if you're a right-handed golfer, you either don't swing the club head so far to the right, or you feel like you're holding on to the face a little bit longer and don't change that path.
Right.
So it's up to you. You can change path or face, either one. It really doesn't matter. If you wanted to hit the fade, then your path is going to have to become moving left through the golf ball. Now, if you move it left through the golf ball with that closed face, you won't be drawing it anymore. You'll be hooking it off the planet.
Yeah, big four.
Yeah. So we do this drill all the time. We set a shaft up out here, okay, and you get in line with it. You put the golf ball on the line of that shaft, and you make swings. Try to start 10 balls to the right. Then all this is done from a square stance. Then try to start 10 balls to the left of the shaft. So whichever one that you start the most balls at, right or left, that's kind of what we call your golf DNA. Then just work on narrowing the amount of the curve.
Yep.
So when we get a player that's curving it off the planet, we don't change their flight particularly or their shot pattern. What we'll do is we narrow it so it's not an overdraw.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what I would recommend.
Yep.
Okay. So all right, next one here. All right, this is from Greer. What is the best transition style to help shorten my backswing but not hurt my hips? Well, so if you're hurting your hips, I would suggest that you freely turn them as far as you can in both directions.
Yeah.
As far as the transitional part of it, all I can tell you is I can stand right here and turn my hips as hard as I want, and that club is not moving. Okay.
Like it hurt just a little bit.
And that's probably what you're doing, but the club is not moving.
Right.
So then what happens is, and we just had a guy ask us earlier on this, you get a pivot stall. What we call, everything stops. You have to flip at the golf ball. So I would suggest not particularly shortening your backswing, but letting your hips turn freely. You can have a shorter backswing with a free hip turn. You could go right to here, okay, which isn't from this angle. And see, that looks pretty short there. but it doesn't look short from this angle.
Right.
So you can, I would freely turn your hips to relieve all the back pain. I wouldn't worry about shortening the swing necessarily, but I would focus more on not trying to spin those babies out of the way.
You spin them out, you're going to start putting some pressure in some spots in your back and your hips. You're not going to like it. So definitely you don't want to feel like you're just spinning them out.
Right. Okay, let's see what the next question is here. This one is, I think it's Ty. Which way is correct? Please advise me. At impact, I will stack my left shoulder, knee, and hip on the left, forming a straight line. Then use leg and oblique to post up. Or, same as one, but don't need to stack the shoulder. Thanks.
There's a lot going on right there.
So here's the deal. You do not want the knee, the hip, the shoulder, and the ankle all in line at impact, right? Because that means your center is moving forward too much.
Yeah.
So if you just stand here like this and I push my hips this direction, you'll notice how I tilted like this. Now when I turn, as you can see, these are not in a vertical line. Okay, it's okay that they're in line, just not a vertical line.
Right.
Okay. So yes, you want to look more like a letter A and less like a letter I.
Right. Definitely, like Chuck was saying, lead hip can be on top of the lead foot, but, like he was saying, if you push all this forward, well, now everything's floating, so then you're going to have to do something a little squirrely for everything to catch up.
Right.
So, definitely you want to get them on top, these two on top, and then, you're just going to post it and rotate.
Right. And if I'm reading your question right, it's like you get this over here, and then you post up and back. Well, I don't know that I want to go here and then have to rely on going back.
That's an extra move.
Yeah, why don't you just get there?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's an extra move, takes a lot of timing. There are some players that can do that, and there are players that have done that. But it depends on your handicap level and how flexible and how good your timing is.
Right. There's even tour players that do that are actually trying to get that out of the system.
Correct.
Again, because of the timing part of it.
So, if you're at the top and you've moved your pressure downward, now what you're trying to do is rotate in place, not rotate backwards particularly. But if I'm right here, you can see all I have to do now is just plain turn. So now it is not a vertical line because that moves my center, my upper center, and my head too far forward when you do that.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, our next question. Alfonso, best way to shift weight in the downswing. Take it away, Brian.
All right, so I'm gonna piggyback off the last question. And we're gonna tie these two together here a little bit. So actually, I'm gonna need one. I need one rod. So let's talk about what it is we're trying to do. So if you take a club or a rod, stick it right under your chin and hang it right down through your belt buckle here. So now if I get in my golf posture and I turn back, you can see that I kept my chin more steady here, but this rod's now on my right thigh. So all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to shift that bottom of that rod here to my left. Boop. That's it.
There you go.
Okay, so it's kind of a short, sweet answer, but it actually ties into the question we just had and the last one.
Right.
Kind of another little feedback there, if you will.
Right.
The amount of pressure that you're trying to do, again, it's not that you're trying to push a chair over. You're just trying to get there, lift it a little bit, and then just turn through it here. Yeah.
Okay. Next question. This is from Jay. When we bump forward, do our hips align above the front leg or slightly behind the front leg?
Your turn.
Well, my hip's in line with my leg right now. If I go like this, it's still in line with it. You don't want to push too much. Again, what happens is if I'm at the top and I push too much, you can see how that club is starting to flatten and really starting to go that direction over there. Versus if I just move the pressure and now I add rotation, you can see that the club is not coming from such an inward outward path. Now, if you're trying to draw the ball, then yes, you want to feel more lateral movement.
Mhm.
But you got to make sure when you do that, that you don't stand up.
And that's the thing we see a lot, especially with players that are trying to get more from the inside, working on the transition part, is, yeah, they'll slide and they just keep going, and they don't figure out that they got to turn.
Right. Well, and the other way to do that is if I didn't want to slide as much, and I wanted the club more coming from the inside, so if I just going to put a little bit amount of pressure, and then I'm going to turn, you see where that club is going. Well, if I a little bit of pressure, and now I start to turn, I'm going to rotate my hands backwards, and I just accomplished the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can do that a couple of different ways. Okay. All right, next question. Well, we got a bunch of them. Thanks, guys. Dexter, I'm cutting across the line at times, so the ball drifts right.
Okay, well, like we were talking about the draw part earlier, with the club coming too far from the inside. In this case here, the club's kind of coming a little bit too much from the outside. So, I'll give you that. So I would probably have you focus on, all right, what's my transition sequence? Since we're talking transition here, is you're probably using a little bit too much upper. So you can now see how my hands and arms are going outward and the shaft's going through my neckline here. Where now if I feel like I'm trying to use more lower here, so now I'm going to lower it. You can see how that shallows out my hands and arms and gets the shaft going more through my shoulder right here.
Right.
So again, what's going on is that club's trying to get kicked out just a little bit, and it's working to the left, and that's why you're hitting some fades. So again, what we've talked, you want to get the club more from the inside and make sure the face matches what you're trying to do.
And maybe the fade is your golf DNA.
Yeah.
You need to do that little test we talked about where you stick the alignment rod out there and from a square stance, start balls right and left. See which one you hit the most of.
Yep.
All right, next question. This is from Sandy. How do I follow through with my swing? I seem to stop my swing Sandy, we just talked to you last week about this, that you stop when you hit the face. So, all right, so I have no problem hitting the center of the face of the club, but I can't continue to swing after I hear the click of the ball. So, much like we explained to you last week, Sandy, just put a ball on a little tee. All right, and I want you to just make swings like this, okay? And as you do this, step up toward the ball and hit it.
Yep.
Okay, so if the ball was on a tee right here, let's say, okay, I think you can see that. You're going to start back here. You're going to just feel the club swinging. Now watch, I'm going to take little steps until I get to the ball, and I'm going to hit the ball. So that's all you're trying to do. Just keep the motion of the swing going. And then secondly, wear earplugs.
Yeah, that's right. That was part of the remedy last week.
Yeah. All right, the next question. This is from Ken. Does a club face open some on the takeaway?
Well,
it can.
It can. Oh wait, we always say depends.
Depends.
It can, but now if we looked at it from a pure geometry standpoint, if I had that'd be perfect from
yeah,
big from there. So if I had this club sitting on a plain board or a sheet of glass, and I'm going to use the rod here. So now if I just let the shaft ride that, as it goes, it's opening on its own. I didn't add any rotation with my hands or my arms here. So if I keep the club on plane on my takeaway, it's naturally, you can see that the white rod here is starting to open itself. So it's opening naturally. A lot of players would think that they've got to do this to open it on the backswing.
Right. Then it gets behind you.
Then it does. It'll get behind you and laid off, and now when you get halfway down again, you're like this. So now you got to do a panic roll. So it's not something that we strongly advise by any means. But there have been times where better players do roll it a little bit. But again, the more you roll it there, you got to roll it again on the downswing.
Right. So, and a good way to look at this is if you held the club up on a level plane like this, let's say, and let me point it this way so you can see. Okay, so that's pointed pretty straight. So if I held it up on a level plane and I just went like this, right, and I leaned down, right, well, right about here, here's a level plane, right? So right here, when I lean down, you can see where that's pointed. I didn't go like this up on this plane. All I did was move here, lean forward. That'll tell you exactly where the club face should be at any point during the swing.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got to remember, up here, we're not doing any of this up here, so we don't really need to try to do it down there either.
Right.
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 Okay. Next question. And this is our last question. It's from Dave. I tend to think too much instead of just trusting my swing. I recently came across an idea from a long drive instructor that allows me to think only about tempo while swinging. There was an immediate improvement and the results have been amazing. He says he tells his students to say tempo, tempo during the backswing and go for the downswing.
Well, that's definitely good advice, and I'm glad that it's working for you. You know, for those players that have a tendency to think too much, and I know that you know, when I was playing a lot, that I had that trouble, and I'm sure Chuck has had the same thing where when you're working on your swing or making changes, there's always a point in time where you're always thinking about it because you're trying to ingrain this new feel.
Right.
But then again, there's a time when you go on the golf course where you just got to let it go and trust it. A little routine that I learned from a sports psychologist years ago. I'm starting to sound old.
You're getting
Oh
there.
my goodness. So we called it the see it, feel it, trust it part. And what we would do is beside the ball, I would take a practice swing where I'm trying to see it and I'm trying to feel the shot that I'm trying to hit. So if I'm trying to hit a draw, then I'm trying to feel my draw swing and I'm trying to see it out there downrange. But once I get that feel, now I'm just going to get set and I'm just literally saying, trust it. So I'm literally trying to duplicate what my practice swing felt like. Right? Same speed, same motion, but even though the ball's there, it's going to be going faster.
Right.
It's going to feel like it's going in slow motion, but it's going quicker. And that little thought process there helps you get the feel and then helps you transcend that into the golf ball.
Right. And there was a study done a few years ago with tour players, and what they found was that it's called tour tempo. They found that the backswing was 3 times longer than the downswing. Most of the people we see on the driving range, the backswing is 3 times faster than the downswing.
Yeah.
So it's just the opposite. Another way to think about this, and this was done by a guy named Kerry Mumford, who's since passed, and he called it what he called was a clear key. And a clear key was a phrase or a saying that contained no action words. And so you'd make your mechanical swing behind the ball, focusing on the mechanics, right? Then you would tell yourself, I'm going on automatic, and you would say your clear key out loud. So you'd say, okay, I'm going on automatic. Mary had a little lamb, I wish I had one too. Mary had a little lamb, I wish I had one too. Mary had a little lamb, I wish I had one too. Now you notice when I made that swing, my voice didn't raise up. If you get up here and you're going, Mary had a little lamb, I wish I had one too. Mary had a little lamb, I wish I had one too. That's probably not going to be a good thing. Okay? So you can hum to yourself, whatever. But you can say it inward, because if you feel yourself going, ugh, then you know you're changing it. Okay?
Priceless.
Priceless. Okay, that's all the questions we have. We want to thank you guys for coming. Today is Red Friday. Unfortunately, we're playing Peyton Manning Monday or Sunday.
I don't even know who the Cowboys are playing.
I don't know.
I've lost hope.
All I know is we are 1-16 against Peyton Manning.
But you're like 14, and Andy Reid's like 14-2 off a bye. You got that going for you.
We got that going for us. And yeah, if Peyton breaks his leg and can't play, we got that going for us. So anyway, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for the questions. Keep sending them in.